So why ramen though? Like what brought that upon?
Um, Ramen, yes. So, um, when I was cooking in New York, I think I used to, my favorite part about cooking in New York is you can. I mean, I was working like heavy hours, and it was very exhausting. But if you went out to a certain part of the city, you could eat good food, and you can eat good regional food, true, authentic in its most bare sense, regional food. And I'm a Bangalore boy. I mean, I've eaten Chinese restaurants here. I've eaten. Uh, so when you're in New York and you have this whole plethora of restaurants on this one island, you want to try your bit. And obviously, you're not going to $100 billing restaurants. You are going to small ones, right? You're going to these small shops like regional shops. And I discovered a gem which is now like a phenomena in the US. I think I didn't even find the original location. I found the second or third location on the street called St. Mark's Place. It's a place called Xi'an. It's Xian with an apostrophe in
Hmm.
the middle. It's a city. It's a province in China, Xi'an, and they have this food that's they have a cookbook out recently, and I've been reading that because it's the place that I connect to. I'm like, oh, this is the place I found, but they have like multiple outlets now, and they're like a big deal right now. So it was a small outlet, and they have this. It's Chinese food, but they have this. That city falls in the Silk Route map. So that city is the central entry point into China. So they had a lot of Middle Eastern traders coming in. So their food has like cumin and a lot of other spices that you wouldn't normally relate to Chinese food. And there's a considerable amount of Muslim population there. So there's lamb. Lamb is the choice of protein. So there's something called spicy cumin lamb with like hand pulled noodles. So that was my first foray into sort of Asian food, authentic Asian food, and I really liked that place. And it was $6 back, 580 I think for a bowl of noodles, which was amazing. And then slowly, what is the next one I could think of? I think it's a sort of ramen, and then I had my first ramen experience in New York, and then it was I had gone with a friend. I think he had took a picture. I think it was my display picture for the longest time because it was a life altering moment for me when I just had my first bowl of ramen and I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop smiling. I was like, "Whoa, what is this?" So it was already, yeah. I mean, I was like, even in the picture, while I'm slurping those boiling hot noodles, I'm smiling. It's the it's the it's like one bowl of comfort. I mean, the one thing that came close to it is a large bowl of ice cream for me because I love ice cream. But ramen did wonders. I mean, in like it's simple in a way to eat. It's not simple to make. It's if you want to make it right, it's not simple. So the first bowl I ate was in New York, and then I kind of ate ramen everywhere I went, and I traveled. Couple of countries in Europe, a couple of countries in sort of wherever I went. I tried to get myself a bowl of ramen. England, yada yada. But and then I planned a trip to Japan, which was a big plan. And I think in 20 days, me and my friend, my best friend Aditya, we ate about 30 bowls of ramen in 20 days, which by ramen blogging standards is not a big deal, but we had no idea what we were getting into. And I think we put on about 8 to 10 kgs each by at the end of the trip, and we're still trying to get that weight off. It doesn't go. It's like this. So ramen, yeah, it hit all the right spots, and it was just a bowl of um, soup and noodles done so well. It's it's difficult to it's difficult to explain. And then that stayed on. So this trip in Japan I was talking about is 2018, if I'm not wrong. And then ever since then I've been trying to see if we can do something about ramen that makes me feel the same way that I felt in Japan. And that's how I
Mhm.
started cooking ramen. And then during the last lockdown, right about this time, is when I was like, what am I doing? I don't mean there's nothing much to do. Might as well try my hand at this ramen business. Like, let me see. That's how it started. That's how it started. Yeah.
Wow. Are you going to try to incorporate that into like your menus at some point?
It's difficult because it's so specific a food.
Hmm.
It's so
Yeah.
specific a food, and I think there's um, I don't know. There is a small fan following, but I don't know if it's big enough to make a business out of it. So it has to be something that catches on soon. But I think with the advent of all anime and like a lot of exposure
Yeah.
into Japanese manga and stuff, like kids sort of know what ramen is, right?
Hmm.
And we've been sort of eating a very bad, not a bad, a super convenient version of ramen. I mean, what's
Maggie.
Maggie? Yeah, Maggie is ramen. I mean, Maggie was ramen at some point of time. And then, so you keep eating Maggie. Now you see in the supermarkets a little more cool looking, like packaging and stuff.
Hmm.
And then you want to try it. And that's a little closer and closer and closer. And then you eat a bowl of ramen. You're like, oh God, this is something completely different, you know? But in Japan, the convenience stores in Japan, that's a world altogether. I don't know if you've been, but it's ridiculous. Like the food from the convenience stores, you can live off it. It's really good. And I mean, there's so much more food outside of whatever you get in these combini. I think they call it combini, the convenience store. But even the packaged food there is so ideally close to what they try to make it as close as possible. It's like, for example, finding a butter chicken ready to heat butter chicken that's really good compared to the store bought one. I mean, compared to the restaurant one, yeah.
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 How? I mean, in your experience, how receptive is the Indian crowd to kind of new foods, right? Because I feel like
Mm.
sometimes people are very closed off to try new things. They're very comfortable in what they've been doing for so long.
100%. That's generally been the issue. But I mean, you're comfortable eating what you grew up eating, right? Like I still love South Indian breakfast. Like that's the best breakfast you can have, hands down. Like uh, I feel like I would eat it 5 days, 6 days a week. But when you bring in something like ramen, I mean, you're hoping people relate to it at some point because you've had it before, um,
Mm.
in a different version, mostly curried up or what they call curry. Let me give you an artsy version of it, um, and hope you like it. But people say somebody who's traveled to Japan or something, they're very receptive for it. They're like, oh, we had it there. We've been dying to eat something like that here. Because there's about 40, 50,000 ramen shops in Japan.
Wow.
So it's impossible that you've gone there and not seen one. Or you must have tried really hard not to eat it if you've not eaten it when you're there. And there's a it's a craze sort of a food. It's a craze. There are these ramen bloggers that eat about 1,000 bowls a year, roughly.
Oh wow,
Yeah, so I follow a couple of them. That's the only
that's
connect of the.
that's almost a
Yeah,
bowl of ramen for like each meal.
yes. Or sometimes they'll do four, and the serving portions are so huge. Um, if I ate one bowl in the afternoon, I would skip dinner, or I would eat an apple or something for dinner. But I don't know how these guys do it, and all of them seem they look seemingly fit. I don't know. I don't know how they do it, but there's a couple of English speaking bloggers also doing some great work right now, and I follow them mostly to see what kind of ramen. There's so many different kinds of ramen, and the ramen is that when you asked why ramen, I forgot this main point is when it comes to Japanese food, it's very strict. It's very strict. Like um, say for me to learn sushi, for me to start learning sushi now, the proper like a Japanese person would do it. It would take me 10 years before I could make one proper sushi.
Oh
I'd
wow.
struggle to get an apprenticeship, then I'd get one, then I'd just wash the rice for like. I mean, this is like taking off the storyline of Jiro dreams of sushi, but it's a very traditional sort of methodical, rule-based sort of learning system, apprenticeship learning system. Ramen, on the other hand, is a very recent food, even in Japan. It's about only
Hmm.
50, 60 years old. I think 50 years old. Even in Japan. They borrowed it in its more native form called chuka soba from China. And then they did their own thing to it. It became ramen. So Japan's like recent food. And ramen is recent food in Japan. And there's no rules. So with ramen, there's no rules. Um, Essential, some things are there, but people are doing all kinds of things. It's it's the easiest sort of food to get into with respect to Japanese food. And if you ever make a bowl of ramen, you'll know that's not easy. It's no rules, so you can do your own thing a little bit. You can add your own touch of things, and they will not look down upon it. They will probably be like, "Oh, this is cool," you know. That's what it is, and it's just for me. It was I didn't know it was ramen didn't have rules. I just ate my bowl of ramen. I'm like, this is great. I think we should be doing this in India, and I think it's slowly making its way into India, um, especially up north. I think Delhi and those kind of places. It's quite popular where there's a sort of a significant Japanese population. You will see a ramen
Hmm.
shop or two. I think there's one in Chennai. There's a couple in Delhi. But yeah, you see more and more people cooking ramen nowadays, and I'm hearing about a lot of people cooking ramen.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's interesting that you mentioned the manga part because I mean I have a lot of friends that watch anime and manga, right? And I remember when Gordon Ramsay first started making YouTube videos
Hmm.
and BuzzFeed Tasty, and I remember thinking how like looking back how radically like food itself changed, right, or the perception of it with
Hmm.
the advent of social media.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, especially the BuzzFeed Tasty, the small 2 minute videos that are there on YouTube.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's very
No, they're very
interesting to,
convenient. It's very convenient,
yeah,
and the whole process looks like 30
so
seconds.
simple.
Yeah,
Mm,
so somebody sitting at home, like, I can do that. But it takes some time.
yeah,
But I think that paved the way for a lot of people actually trying to cook something at home. Or if
yeah,
you're in like a hostel, or if you're away from home and you have a kitchen, it pushed people to do, oh, this looks easy, let me try it.
yeah.
And but Japanese sort of Food's so integral. You can see it in everything. You can see it in everything.
Mm.
In their movies, in their anime, food is more than mere sustenance. It's it's a part of life. It's not just. I think that's what here it becomes just your energy burning, so you can get your day going. It's a little more than that, I think, in Japan, and that's why it reflects that way in anime. I mean, in anime and in their food and how much care they take for their food.
Yeah. Have you read the book Ikigai by any chance?
Mm, mm.
I've been listening to the audiobook, and it's very interesting the way that Japanese culture looks at things, right? And their kind of perspective on life and everything in it.
I think sometime last year I was a little down low, and my sister bought me that book. My sister Kriti, she's like, I think you need to read this. You will understand. It's like I'm like, okay, because I don't really read too much. She said it's a small book. You should be able to go through it. It's fine. So then, yeah, I mean, there are so many principles like Ikigai that the Japanese have. There's one
Yes.
more called Kodawari. Kodawari is the thing of doing one thing. It's one thing for life, but you spend your life doing it so well. That's why you see a lot of families doing. You'll see an entire lineage of blacksmiths. Your grandfather, your father, you, your son, they're all dedicated to lying to make the craft better, to become better at the craft, or do one thing, and it's just doing one thing and putting so much effort into it, making it the perfect sort of
Mm.
product, and then you end up uh, working your entire life creating that perfect product. It's not just your life, your entire lineage sort of continues. That's why you see such great things from Japan. I think it's
Yeah,
because of that commitment. Yeah.
true. So, I mean, you were talking about how, like, to learn sushi takes a lot of time, right? So, for the people that, I mean, at least in India or in other places, are they all experts who have been trained for that long, who are making sushi now?
um so there's you've had sushi in Japan, you had sushi outside Japan. It's very different. When you talk sushi, it's a different world. There's different levels of sushi. There's supermarkets, you get like ready-made sushi. Then you get like conveyor belt sushi where you can just pick off
Hmm.
something it's okay to
Yeah.
eat. Then you get sushi restaurants like somewhere in the middle, and then there's a little top quality sushi. Then there's high end sushi, and then there's super luxury, ultra high end sushi, which most people can't afford or even get on reservation. So it's got different levels. It's generally, think me and Aditya went to a two-star Michelin because we really wanted to see what it was like. And this place was in the middle of nowhere. Um, but the food, I mean, is an experience. I can't really talk about it. It's just you weren't allowed to take any photos, and I didn't want to. It was a multi-sensory experience. You can't begin to describe over a voice or a video call. It's just difficult. It's I would suggest everybody experience it once at least in their life. It's a perfect harmony of fish and rice. That's what it is, in so many ways and with so many things. And we just watch him make sushi. It's just like very satisfying. It's like you'll see it in the movies or some of these blogs of people. But yeah, sushi. It's yeah. You'll usually to answer your question, you'll usually there'll be one like super master. There's one right now. It's a place called I think Saito. Sushi Saito is like top in Japan now. he'll have, say, four apprentice guys. And after working like 10, 12, 14, 15 years, all of them eventually open up their own shops. Some might work out, some might not work out, and some will be like, oh, it's this guy's apprentice. So every top sort of high end sushi guy would have worked in under a master. So it's like, and then he'll put his own style and thing into things. There are a few guys though, however, who've been doing some weird thing, like been working in a car factory and then become sushi masters. I don't know, but they'll also usually work in a place. So there are sushi schools in Tokyo, but to become like one ultra high level sushi guy, you need to be really, really dedicated to the craft.